Hi, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Tim Ohai. You've got two Tims today.
Yeah.
Tim squared. And Tim has written the great book, The Zen of Strategic Execution: The Principles for Execution You Were Never Taught. Tim, thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people find you?
Thank you. You want to find me at timohai.com, TIMOHAI.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, very active there.
And so, Tim, first question: what was the inspiration behind the book?
Living in corporate, I'll go back many years. I had a global role in a company called Shell Oil, and I was a junior guy, mid-level at best, and I was involved in some pretty big discussions around global OEM strategy at such, and it hit me. No one outside of the military veterans have been taught how to execute strategy.
Okay.
And even the military veterans in the room would say, hey, I've been taught strategy, how to execute it, but I can't use it in civilian life, because in the military, everything's in order. In civilian life, you have this thing called free will, and it gets in the way. So what I found was we were all working our butts off, and I'm talking senior leaders working really hard to try to fill the gaps, because nobody had been taught how to make all this stuff work. And that started me on a journey for many years that led me into digging deep with this, the company called Walmart, teaching Walmart how to do a strategic execution for their senior directors and directors. And that, even then, what I was teaching was wrong. And I say wrong, it was the best we had available to us. But the premise was off this idea that if you plan your work and work your plan, everything will come to light beautifully and land. No, that's not how it works. Everything looks great on paper until people get involved. So I restarted really with Henry Mintzberg's definition of strategy being a series of decisions. I'm going, well, if strategy is a series of decisions, shouldn't execution be the same thing? Shouldn't we be decision making, not planning? And I looked at then working with clients like the ones I mentioned, et cetera, and then going back into corporate at one point in Silicon Valley. And I just saw consistently people were undoing, redoing, or simply not doing decisions that needed to be made. And that, as I talk to everybody, I'm going, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to write a book. We're going to do this. We're going to go after it hard.
I've been there, Tim. I've seen it. The subtitle of the book is the Principles of Execution You Were Never Taught. What is the single biggest lie or misconception leaders are taught in business school about how to execute a strategy?
It's what I just said around the idea that strategy is a plan. It's not a plan. It's an environment of decision making. So the question I give leaders is, are you a leader because you have great plans, or are you a leader because you make environments of great decision making? And the test I give them is, can you turn your back? Can you go on vacation? Can you go on holiday? Can you leave the room? How confident are you that great decisions are being made when you're not in the room? That is the test. And if you don't have confidence there, you might have something to learn.
Yeah. Great point. You cited statistics showing that 65% of executives don't actually believe their own strategy will lead to success. If the leaders themselves don't buy into the plan, what are they actually doing when they launch it?
They're hoping. It's pure hope. And hope is not a strategy, right? The old famous saying. But they're hoping this time will work. And I'm seeing it right now in 2026. Literally, people are working on their strategies, hoping this year will be better than last year. But everybody's working harder. There's still another round of layoffs. There's still another round of chaos geopolitically. Nothing is going to stabilize, I think, for a while, partially because of just the part of history that we're living within. I mean, this is like living in a history chapter of a book in university. It's just crazy, everything that's going on. But everybody's been probably hoping or clinging to this idea that if we can get through this, it'll stabilize again. I'm going, no. Welcome to the ocean. I live in Hawaii, so I'm looking right out at the ocean right now, and the water is constantly moving, the waves are constantly going, and nothing is stable. And you may need to make peace with that. Islands will happen, but that you have to know how to navigate to them.
I agree. You frequently say that execution has very little to do with the strategic plan itself. If the plan isn't the driver of execution, what is?
Yeah, Man, Tim, we're getting into some pretty deep stuff. So my background, and intentionally, I chose to get a master's in industrial organizational psychology instead of an MBA. And I did
Yep.
that because everything looks great on paper until people get involved. So I told my boss, I'm like, well, why don't we figure out this people stuff that seems to keep getting in the way? It's not the math. The math always works. So that is probably our biggest obstacle, is what's going on in our heads and our hearts. And I call it the ego fear loop. In the book, I explain it in detail, but essentially we have core drives. We want to be good at something. We want to mean something to someone else, and we want to have the freedom to make our own choices. Those core human drives that are universal get distorted, and we want to be successful, significant, and in control. The problem with that is the moment you create an identity attachment to those three things: success, significance, and control, the way the ego, the human ego, works is that's how we create fears. Anything that becomes a threat to our sense of self becomes a fear.
Yep.
And so we become afraid of failing, afraid of rejection, and afraid of risk. And I watch great decision makers crumble the moment they're afraid of failing, they're afraid of rejection, or they're afraid of risk. And it's this loop that is honestly, that's the Zen part of the book. If you can master yourself, you can master the situation. If you cannot master yourself, you'll never master the situation.
Right. Your background is in industrial organizational psychology. How does emotional pressure and stress after human decision making? How does emotional pressure and stress alter human decision making when a team is trying to hit a complex corporate milestone?
Well, let's build right off of that. So let's say we've got this ego fear loop that's present in the room, and we've all been in those meetings where people are posturing, they're trying to look really good, etc. What's happening is their amygdala, the part of the brain that's pure emotion, fear-based, designed to process first, has hijacked the prefrontal cortex. So it's the middle part of the brain hijacking the part of us that problem solves.
Yep.
It limits our aperture. We can't see the real problem. So I was talking about get neutral first, so that you can then figure out what the real problem is, and then figure out your outcomes and paths from there. But if you can't get neutral first, and I'll be blunt, there's a lot of noise around growth mindset. I love growth mindset. It does not work if you cannot get neutral first.
Yeah.
I cannot see failure as an opportunity for growth if I can't get neutral and say, you know what, it's okay if I fail or succeed. It's not, this is about, I'm going to do my best. And my best is all I can do. So I walk through how to get people into that neutral state so that they can then make really positive outcomes. But if you can't get neutral, no, it's following that boss who's freaking out, or that commander who doesn't know how to handle a battlefield, or that screamer who lives in your house as a family member.
Yeah, I've seen it in boardrooms where people basically get emotional about stuff, and they just become and they can't get, as you say, into neutral to actually get into the problem solving piece.
Yeah. And it's everybody. We all have our moments. The key is how quickly can we recover? I need to be very aware of that. I'm doing it. Oh gosh. Okay. And the key is this: as soon as I'm negative or critical, as soon as I'm thinking negative, critical thoughts, my amygdala is starting to take over. And if I can recognize, ooh, that's negative, that's not curious, I can challenge with curiosity. I don't need to challenge with negativity. And there's the difference.
In the book, you challenge leaders by asking, how confident are you that great decisions are being made when you're not in the room? How do we build an environment where people make the right choices autonomously without relying on constant oversight?
Great question. So the book goes deep into all of that. And there's a framework that I introduce that it's my own model, but it's just based off of literally decades of experience from Fortune 1 to startups in South Africa. It all works. Everybody wants a great culture, but you cannot have a great culture without really good trust-based accountability, not fear-based accountability. Fear-based accountability gives you compliance, but it also distorts your culture. So you need both accountability and culture to make great decisions, but you can already see there's a pattern. I need accountability before I have culture. Well, in order for me to have really good trust-based accountability, what else needs to be on the table? Engagement. I need people who want to be there. I need people who are saying, I'm in. And that engagement opens the door to accountability. But if I want real engagement, they have to be empowered. And so empowerment goes into the table as well. And so if I want empowered people to be engaged, be accountable, great culture, wonderful. What else is missing? The most important piece, and I mean the most important piece, is clarity.
Yeah.
I need to have clarity, because if I have clarity, when I empower, it won't get wasted. It won't turn dysfunctional. So we need clarity first, then empowerment, then engagement, accountability, culture. And then that creates a continuous improvement wheel, a flywheel, if you will. That culture does feed back into the next round, but it always starts with clarity, because culture is the outcome, not the input.
I think that's so important, Tim. As a leader, it's so hard as well.
And again, none of us were taught this. How
Yeah.
many times as leaders have we gone to meetings, even meetings, and this, let's start with a culture moment. Okay, great. But how are we making decisions around here? Because there seems to not be enough clarity. And without that clarity, all of our decision making is now turning toxic. And so whether I intended that or not, now I have to be in the room to make sure a great decision is being made.
Yeah. Yeah. Why did you choose the word Zen for the title? Too many Zen sounds peaceful and passive, whereas corporate execution is often viewed as aggressive and fast-paced. How do the two concepts merge?
It was actually a trip I took last year to Japan. I went to Kyoto with my wife.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we went for sakura, for cherry blossom.
Yeah.
Bucket list moment. Oh my gosh, you've been, so you know.
Yeah.
And what a lovely place, right?
It's a beautiful place, beautiful
It's
people,
fantastic.
beautiful place.
400-year-old buildings plus.
Yeah.
And that's what hit me, was I'm walking these streets looking at the Zen of everything, the harmony, the perfection, the simplicity. And yet it was so complex, because the math involved to make something look like that is not simple. To go look at a building that has huge tree trunk size columns with floating pedestals on stone. So if an earthquake hits, the entire thing shakes and then just settles back into place.
Yep.
Without a single nail, just blew my mind. And I'm going, that is execution. It is the essence of something in a core, simple way that is so clean and yet maintains all of the complexity. And so that was my challenge for how I wrote the book. So the book is actually, I made a target, 200 pages. We don't have time to read these big, long books. And I've been published by big publishers before, and they wanted these big books. And I'm like, no, that's not how we read. It's not how we think. So I used that experience to inspire a Zen approach to the book. And quite frankly, it forced my thinking to get even better.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, one of the things that I really liked about it, Tim, was that it was short.
Yeah.
I think I read it over the weekend or something like that, and it was.
Yeah.
And as a writer and as an author, someone said to me recently about my latest book, I deliberately did it was 25,000 words, and it was like someone said to me, "Hey, I read it over the weekend," and I'm thinking, surely you took years to read it.
Yeah, right. No, but what do you remember? Like I read your most recent book, and I still have thoughts about it. I still think about it all the time, because it was so easy.
Of course, you have read it. Yes.
It was so easy to digest, and it was like it made sense. So the key is the book is something you can go back and reread.
Yeah.
Right. The book is designed like, just come back to it and just look it up again, because it is one thing to know, it is another thing to do.
Absolutely, yeah. You boldly stated that change management is a scam.
Yeah.
Because what people resist isn't change, but rather confusion and broken execution. Can you break down what leaders should be doing instead of traditional change management?
Yeah, well, think about it. So most change management, and I've been a part of change management teams at big projects and companies, et cetera. And it's always, we're going to change the organization. We need you to make sure that the change is adopted. Okay. And then it launches. And it has been everything from really good change that was still tough for people to absorb because they weren't ready for it. And to be blunt, we all like change as long as we're in charge. It's when we're being changed is the problem.
Yep.
It's also usually, though, so poorly launched that it's all about playing whack-a-mole with everyone's emotions and say, calm down here, you should be fine, oh yeah, I know that entire group over there is now gone and all those desks are empty, but just look away, right? So there's all these dynamics going on, and none of it has to do with how we help people understand why decisions are made and what's going on. And again, change management requires, how do I say this? Somewhat of a manipulation of individual will. And it's always from the organizational view. Grant Van Olbrecht writes wonderfully about the idea that change needs to be written from the individual's view, not the organization's. And I even go one step further. And I go, not just from the individual's view. It's just like, these are the decisions we are making as a group. What decisions can you make? And when we empower people with agency to make decisions, then all of a sudden they realize, oh, the change made sense. I don't need to be managed. I get why we did what we're doing. I understand where we're going. I don't have these open questions because you've provided clarity and you provided empowerment. I'll naturally engage. I'll naturally be accountable. And the culture will be stronger as a result. Without those elements, what is your change management?
We are seeing companies rush to implement AI to solve efficiency and execution problems. You've warned that AI will actually accelerate organizational failures if the foundation is broken. How should leaders assess their true readiness before throwing technology at the problem?
Wow, that is worthy of its own conversation.
we could
It really is.
20 minutes doing
How
that.
about throwing a spanner in the works, Tim? So let's start with this. AI wants to make its own decisions. It's designed to make its own decisions. It's designed to not implement like software. Software launches and then it just becomes normal. AI launches and continually improves itself, and it's designed to do that. If we don't have a great decision-making environment and we throw something with that kind of power into the environment itself, it will expose all of our poor decision-making. It will accelerate all of our poor decision-making, and it will even make bad decisions on its own. It's called decay. And AI will decay on its own just naturally, but it becomes even worse every time a human touches it, because now we're injecting our own undoing, redoing, and not doing the decision-making that needed to be made into the AI as it processes, and it winds up producing stuff that's not on track. And I think there's a reason why, was it 95% of all companies that are implementing AI are getting zero impact? Zero.
Yeah.
It's not a software implementation. It's a way of thinking. And if you don't anchor the way of thinking to how you make great decisions, your thinking doesn't matter, because what you're doing is you're designing processes, and the processes don't work in real life. They never have, they never will. That's why we have humans that we pay them.
Yeah.
They fix it and make it work.
In the book, you discuss how a Fortune 100 retailer rescued a struggling strategy by shifting power to local field leadership. What does that shift actually look like in practice, and what can smaller businesses learn from it?
So I'll be a little more. I won't name the company, but it's very easy to figure who they probably were based on who I've said I've worked with. But they had, it was holiday season was approaching. They had to make a massive change in the operations in the local stores, and the guy sitting at headquarters just could not get the connection. People just weren't doing the change. It was a process change that involved how they did some merchandising, and the exercise was, Tim, I'm stuck. So we used the 5, 6, 7 principle that we talk about in the book, and we just said, let's 5, 6, 7 this. Let's just look for the 5% that'll get you 67% of the outcome that you're looking for. And the easiest thing you could do, the simplest, was pick up the phone and call the regionals. And so he did. He just started a phone campaign. And when you think about this large company, you think about the emails, the meetings, the top to top discussions, everything else. He just picked up the phone old fashioned, and he just separated all the noise and went after just the 5%. And once he did that, the regionals understood why the change was happening. And I told them, let's inject the clarity that's needed so they understand why this is a priority. And literally within 30 days, the thing was implemented. It was done just in time for holiday season, and then it produced massive results for the company. But it's again, we talk about prioritization, and it's not what's a priority, it's what's not. So 95% of what we do gives you at best 33% of what you're looking for. That's the math. So knowing how to separate what needs to be done first and what needs to be done later, if done at all, is a critical skill that most of us don't even know how to do, because everything's important.
So last question. If a leader listening to this interview realizes that their current strategy is currently unraveling, what is the first thing that they should do tomorrow morning to stop the bleeding?
Grab my book. Honestly, I just grab my book. It's over my shoulder right there. The Zen of Strategic Execution. Find it on Amazon globally. Just grab a copy and just start reading. And I'll be honest, you don't even need to read the whole book. you can get through the first 2 sections on clarity and empowerment, and you will be full of things to go do. Most organizations that I walk in and work with the leadership team, at the very beginning, there's not enough clarity, and they didn't realize that it wasn't there. And once they see it, they can't unsee it. And then they're like, okay, we'll go fix this. And it's amazing. The whole principle is, if I inject clarity, the empowerment works better without having to do anything. And so does the engagement, the accountability, and the culture. And if I now tighten up my empowerment, oh my gosh, engagement starts to surge, and so does accountability and culture. I don't have to go through every single step. So the key is, the book will show you where the breakdown is so you can diagnose. It'll give you very practical best practices on what to do to fix that and address that and get it on track. And the most important thing is to start in order. Start with clarity, make sure that's sorted, then go to empowerment, then go to engagement. Don't start at accountability. Don't start at culture. You're chasing the tail.
Tim, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, The Zen of Strategic Execution, the principles of execution you were never taught. You did mention it just now, but if I wanted to buy a copy, where can you get one from?
Yeah, Amazon. And it doesn't matter what country you're in, it'll show up.
It will show, absolutely. And where can we find more about you?
So like I said, you go to timohai.com is it's my website and everything else. But if you just go on LinkedIn, I'm the only one out there. So it's
you are unique.
Yeah. It's helpful having a Hawaiian last name. But with that said, there's lots of articles, there's YouTube channels, there's all kinds of things you can go get to pull bits of my brain out. And then I'm always happy for an engagement. I'd love to chat. Find my Calendly link on my webpage, and we can set up a conversation if you really want to get serious about changing how you execute strategy.
Excellent. Tim, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for the book, and thank you for the inspiration today.
Oh, it's been a joy, and thank you, Tim.